Okay, I've been asked to say a few things. First, it is a privilege, and I can't remember when I first came to the Brecht Forum, probably sometime in the 1980s, but I've been here on and off since. And since I've been at CUNY, I've always tried to keep a few spaces open in the Marx class for the folk from the Brecht Forum. And they were always great. You know, one of the things about graduate students is they're so totally nervous about making a fool of themselves. They'd always kind of go, well, you know, I think it, you know, blah, blah, blah. And the people from the Brecht Forum would say, I don't know what the fuck he's saying. And it was great because it turned out nobody else in the class knew what he was saying, and sometimes I didn't know what he was saying either. So actually it always was an incredible breath of fresh air to have people coming in from the Brecht Forum who were prepared to call it like it is without any kind of academic kind of paraphernalia on top. It was absolutely great. So I want to thank all those people from the Brecht Forum who came in and made my classes what they are. And Ed has been nice enough to say I'm a great teacher, but actually to be a great teacher, you need great students to teach you how to teach. And Marx has a great line, which is to say, who's going to educate the educators? And actually, you know, these people taught me how to teach. And if the stuff going online resonates, it's almost entirely because of that to and fro process, that dialectic. I think the folk from the Brecht Forum really contributed in a major way to that. Now, I actually think that this is a moment when, rather than looking backwards, we should perhaps look forwards. And I think this is a moment when we have a real big opportunity. This is a big moment for us. You know, there's somebody who's called the Sage of Omaha. You know who I'm talking about? Yeah, Warren Buffett. And he said the other day, he said, yeah, of course there's class struggle going on. And it's my class, the rich class, that's waging it. And we're winning. And I thought to myself, the analysis is correct, but the conclusion doesn't follow. That actually we can change the conclusion. And our big issue right now is how to change the conclusion. And as Marx once sort of said, you know, you can't change the world without taking account of the actual circumstances of the time. And the circumstances have shifted over the last couple of years in ways which are actually very propitious for us in a funny kind of way. Mainly for the wrong reasons, but we can turn it into something very positive. There was a fiscal financial crisis, and everybody didn't know what to do. It was bailed out by the states around the world. And the result is that now people are talking about a sovereign debt crisis. And the sovereign debt crisis can only be solved by austerity. And austerity means you, I, and particularly the least privileged, are going to have to bear the brunt of the cost of what they did. And this, of course, is intolerable. But I want to point out something. We've been here before. It was very telling that in 1975, the New York fiscal crisis, and in my book on neoliberalism, I signal the New York fiscal crisis as one of the big first shots on neoliberal tactics, which is to save the financial institutions and sock it to the people. What I didn't realize, and I should have put in the book, was this was also the founding moment of the Brecht Forum. And I think there's a very interesting way in which we can put those two together. Actually, when you look at the history What happened to Mexico in 1982? Mexico was about to go bankrupt. It had a sovereign debt crisis. And if they had defaulted, the New York banks, investment banks, would have gone under. So what happened? The US Treasury and the IMF got together and bailed out Mexico, saying to them, if you don't accept this deal, nobody will ever invest in Mexico again. You've got to accept this deal. And the deal was pay off the New York investment bankers and take a cut of 25% in the standard of living of the Mexican people. That is what's being done to us today. The only difference this time is that there's no IMF to do it because the US government is the IMF. And so we are now in this very interesting moment. And the deficit is something fascinating. Remember, Reagan ran up, the Republican president ran up the biggest deficit of all time in the 1980s. He did it through military expenditures against the Soviet Union to bring the Soviet Union down. And the project, it turned out, and remember what David Stockman, his budget director, finally confessed. He said, we ran up the deficit because when the deficit became large enough, we could go cut all of the social programs and all the social security and everything else, and that was what we were really after. David Stockman said that in the 1980s. What the fuck are they doing today except doing exactly the same thing? Bush ran up the deficit like crazy. We were in a surplus at the end of the Clinton years. Not that I'm a great fan of Clinton, but we were at least in a surplus. He ran the deficit up by fighting two wars, which at the time, somebody kind of made a calculation and said they will probably cost $200 billion. Oh, they were attacked and vilified as being unpatriotic and stupid, and now it's cost, I don't know how many $1 trillion. They also gave a Medicare prescription drug program, which was a gift to Big Pharma. And of course, they also gave tax cuts to the very, very rich. All to run up this huge, huge deficit. And now they're telling us, how do we have to pay for it? Cut Social Security, cut social programs, cut everything. And it's being done throughout Europe as well. That's what David Cameron's doing in Britain. That's what the Greeks are having to do because they don't have the power to resist it. And this is what's happening to Spain and Portugal and everybody else. And Ireland, alas, poor Ireland. So here's this time when actually the project is to destroy what remains of the welfare state, to destroy all responsibility of capital for the world of social reproduction, let alone the environment, and say it is our responsibility to take care of ourselves with whatever meager salaries we can get. In other words, this is naked class war, which is being foisted on us right down in the name of austerity and in the name of fiscal rectitude. It is an old game. And we should see it's been going on since the 1970s. It's a continuation of the past. It's not a new game at all. But it's precisely about using the deficit, as a means to fight class war for them. Now, if they're going to fight class war, then what on earth are we going to do except fight class war back? That is what we have to do. And I think that what that means is an alliance of forces on the left that are prepared to do it collectively. Now, we all have different ideas of, what I feel about this or that, but there has to be a very broad alliance to attack, because they don't have divisions. They're pretty solidarious in terms of what they're doing. We have to construct a solidarity to fight that class war back. and the Brecht Forum. And I think the number of you who are here tonight testifies to this. The number of people who watch the Marx class online, you know, thanks to Chris Caruso sitting down here who put it online and helped me out with that. The number who watched it online is phenomenal. And some of you maybe saw that animation. It flew around the web like crazy. In other words, there is a moment here where people are prepared to listen to class war rhetoric on our side. And this is what the Brecht Forum has always stood for. This is what Arthur Felberbaum started. And this is what we complete. And I think we have to remember that we're all revolutionaries. I had a very moving moment in Buenos Aires recently. I was invited by the Madres de Playa de Mayo to a conference. And they have a site, a memorial site for all that disappeared. And you see all the photos, this long corridor of photos who got disappeared, who died. But they don't call them the disappeared. They call them the revolutionaries. And their argument was, we mourn their disappearance, but we have to realize what it was they disappeared for. And we have to complete their project. And so I think we have to complete the project of the Brecht Forum 35 years ago as it was instituted and make a real revolutionary mayhem in this city, in this nation, and in the world. Thanks very much.